Wait for Morris to join. Just clean my camera. I'm gonna be doing a little reading. Peace, Morris. It's a beautiful day outside. This is Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey's first book. Are you confused about law? He wrote this back in 2016 or 2017. This book is gold. I feel like all new Moors should have it. It should be in your arsenal of different books that you should have. And this is not my biased opinion. I've read a lot of books out there, and this is by far one of the best that I've read. Peace, family. Shh, it's okay. Sorry, somebody's daring to walk by my house right now, so the dog is barking. Shh, get down. Come on. Go, it's fine. Inside, go. So this book, Are You Confused About Law? His first book, you can find it on our website, www.riseofthemoors.org. That's www.riseofthemoors.org. Hey, enough. Enough. Go inside. So I'm going to read a certain amount of pages. I don't want to give the whole book away, but it is so good. And of course, all the information in this book can be found throughout our various YouTube videos that Grand Sheikh Jamal has already been putting out for the last 2 years. Watch them. If you've already watched them, I promise you, rewatch them, because the information is gonna hit you in a different way, because you can understand it from a different perspective. Before, you're probably brand new to the information, and now if you re-listen, you can comprehend it better and digest it a bit better as well. So this is Are You Confused About Law? He put, a little excerpt from Caveat Emptor at the front, but this is one of my favorite quotes from Jamal. Prophet Noble Drew Ali wrote this right here. This right here was written by Jamal. Nationality will not cure anything. It will not get you out of trouble. Your mind, the way you think, and the way you handle your affairs is your salvation. I have stuff highlighted in here. I must have given my own book away like 4 times because people really need this book. If you can't buy a hard copy, which honestly, he just got these hard copies in. He only ordered a specific amount, and pretty much half the supply is gone. So I'm sure there's only a few books left online. The PDF version is available, and since it's only like 100 and something pages, I believe it's like 130 pages. Let me double check. It can easily be printed. Yeah, it's 170 pages. You can easily print that on a printer at a library or something like that if you do get a PDF version. But I'm gonna go ahead and start. And this is for those of you who haven't read the book, or if you have read the book and it's been a while, consider this like an audiobook. The Moorish divine and national movement is guided by the great God Allah, to which his prophet, the Noble Drew Ali, established several Moorish science temples on American soil to help facilitate the reversion of our state. In the social political operations of the Moorish divine and national movement, started with the old Canaanite temple, established and founded by Drew Ali in 1913. It then became the Moorish Holy Temple of Science in 1925. Considering the movement became largely religious, the temples then adopted a religious affidavit and changed names in 1928 to the Moorish Science Temple of America. Each temple is to teach our people that we are not Negroes, blacks, colored, Spanish, nor Indians, as well as to teach those things necessary to become better men and women within society. Drew Ali made it a point that he desired for us to know for our higher self and lower self, so we may cleanse ourselves of the cares of the world, and we take our places places amongst the affairs of men, administer our own free national government, inclusive of the teaching and of jurisprudence and enforcement of our American Constitution. Temples are to teach history, as history and law must be taught hand in hand. The temples are also established to deal with the now de facto United States corporation company that overthrew the Moorish imperial divan in 1861, posturing as legitimate government. I know I'm outside and it can be a little bit noisy, but can you hear me? Is the sound crispy? Since I'm reading this, I want to make sure that, you know, I'm heard and the feed's not chopping or anything. I'll wait until you let me know. Okay, thank you. If it does get too noisy, please let me know so I can go inside so you can actually hear. It has been proven that these European colonizers will not bring us justice. This is one of the reasons why in the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Act 5, Noble Jurelli mentions schools within every temple, because from our schools come the leaders of the nation. Those leaders will hopefully establish jural societies, businesses, hospitals, universities, restaurants, inclusive of maintaining a national treasury, and all other things necessary to continue the upliftment of our people and humanity as a whole. Within every temple there is to be a member chosen to represent the grand body, to which that grand body is to elect the 7 eyes of Allah, also known as the Supreme Grand Council, to which will elect the Supreme Grand Chairman. The Supreme Grand Council is to treat issues arising from temples that is outside of the temple sheikh's jurisdiction, as well as to treat affairs and other disputes between temples, inclusive of deciding which temples are out of order, aligning them up and holding them to what Noble Jurelli established, and to ensure the movement aspect of the Moorish divine and national movement. The Supreme Grand Council will have the power and duty to control and supervise all the affairs and properties of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and they will be the sole judge of what constitutes conduct injurious to the order, peace, interest, or welfare of the organization, or at variance within its constitution and bylaws. Also, the rules and regulations made by the Prophet, and shall be the sole judge of the sufficiency of the evidence by which such conduct is shown. Hold session of Moorish science body. That might have been a typo. This book is one of the first to be released, so the editing wasn't the best, so mine you'll definitely catch typos in, but the new ones have been edited and are updated. Through the Moorish divine and national movement, you will gain knowledge of self, your true nationality, and identity will be restored to you by you through nationalizing. What nationality restores is your political status. Your political status relates to the enforcement of rights and privileges as it pertains to which rights and privileges you have. Status is your standing or state condition as it relates to the rest of the community, as well as third parties, being the government and or other nationals. It also means estate, as it deals with the matters pertaining to one's ability to manage their estate and their affairs, inclusive of the ownership of property. When your status is corrected, you are no longer placed in the Christian black codes nor in the civilly dead status. There. Stop. Go inside. When people often talk about racism, which is in fact genocide, that they often think that these Europeans, falsely referred to as white, don't like us because of our skin tone. That in fact is not true. The reason that we are facing these harsh mistreatments is to keep us in a civilly dead and non-descendable status, which allows them, the Europeans, to continue to administer our government and lands, as we are Aboriginal and indigenous to this North American continent by heritage. Their political aim is to keep us in a subservient position and live off of our virtues. This is our situation, and it is not racism. What is the continued genocidal operations of the inquisitions against our people that began in Europe and has not ended. Even with the modern day school systems, they are deliberately set up to not teach historical truths, so that way we stay in a subservient position. The facts can be gruesome and ugly, yet in order to fix a problem, we must be able to clearly and specifically identify what the problem is. If your car has a flat tire, you don't go to the mechanic and ask him to look at the engine. We are facing genocide. Why are we asking to end racism? In the flat tire situation, you would ask the mechanic to fix the hole in the tire or to fill the tire with air. That would be the remedy. Dealing with the genocidal situation here in America, considering our people have not nationalized, the United Nations are doing what they can by establishing the Committee of 24 to deal with decolonization. But the only way to truly cure this issue is for us to nationalize. Then we will have the power, imperium, to say who can and who cannot be on our lands. Your nationality alone does not fix the issue. It is the combined forces of your knowledge and what you do with it. And it says movement there in quotations, that will fix the issues and problems that we face today. This is why Noble Drew Ali said, if I've given you all it takes to save a nation, now save yourselves. Do not believe any of the contents in this book. Read it, digest it, analyze it, accept it for its value, cross-reference it, and then disprove it. Then and only then will you allow yourself to see this book and its contents is not to be used for any selfish, misrepresented, or colored purposes. It may be used as a study guide, a reference book, and or lecture book. It may not be reprinted or copied for any purposes without my consent or written permission. May the Almighty Allah protect you with her constant guidance, love, and light. Assalamu alaikum. He did say that you are allowed to print the PDF. I just double-checked today. As long as you're not selling copies of the PDF. That's the only thing that you're not allowed to do. So then it kind of goes into the context, the table of contents, excuse me. There's a quote here from Grand Shikuru Runesi-L, excuse me if I pronounced the name wrong. Commitment problems, that's Negro problems. That's really what it is. Because if you find something you know is good for you that you need to be doing and you can't commit to it, that is sin and disobedience. You should be a slave. Here's some of the contents in the book. That way you get a little preview if you do end up buying it. I'm gonna read. This is still the preface. I'm gonna read up until page 38. So that's as far as I'm gonna go. That's a pretty decent amount. Again, I think this information is really important. So even those 38 pages is just packed with information that everybody should know and have. All right. I hope the sound is still good. The picture is okay. If it needs more lighting, just let me know. Throughout this disquisition, I trust that I will properly elaborate on how the very problems people face today are due to the many ancient wars that have... Excuse me, I lost my place. The many ancient wars that have never ended thus far. The battle may have changed, but the war continues nonetheless. Many, if not all, of the problems we face today on this North American continent are due to ancient hatreds and ancient inquisition operations perpetuated against the ancient cultures of the world. Throughout history, these many wars have changed names. Let me do this. Throughout history, these many wars have changed names and appears to be between different people. But if you look at the geographical locations of these battles and people, it and they are the same. The people are just referred to as something different. Although people have always made themselves distinctly different from other cultures, this renaming of people, as if they are entirely separate from one another, is made to cause confusion and separation. The ancient wars have always been between the Moors, dark-skinned people, and Europeans, pale people, aka Muslims and Christians, etc., etc. Excuse me. Many have tried to separate people by their facial features, hair type, skin tone, and other erroneous descriptions of features. But these caste systems have been developed to separate people in the mind, to cause confusion and attempts to create different races of people. There is only but one race, and it's human. These caste systems were set up, but not limited to, Francis Bernier, Charles Darwin, Carl Linnaeus, I'm going to mess some of these up, Johann Frederick Blumenbach, et alia. All of these caste systems are simulacrums distinguished from reality. Again, there is but one race and it is human. To divide the race based off of these caste systems is erroneous. The human species has one origin, hence the human race. And here's a quote. It says, "Ye are children of one father, provided by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck." That's from the Circle 7, chapter 25. The human race spread out, and different groups of people are identified by nationalities and nothing else. This is the platform for the entire civilized world. To be identified by a name outside of nationality is to be outside of the human race, as the entire word deals with, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be the entire world deals with the international relations and international law with rights that apply to humans. One must know that culture is in the language. To know the problems of the world, we must study the language, etymology. I trust that based on the historical events and the current situations that people are in, you, the reader, will have a better knowledge on the world around you. As the situation of black people in America and other minorities, i.e. Spanish, Latino, Indians, West Indians, Latin Americans, Negroes, colored, African American, etc., have extreme and undoubtable relations to the fall of the great Moorish Empire, with one of the major events at Granada, Spain, 1492, when the world began anew. You will read that I mention etymology a lot. Emphasis can't be placed on it enough. Due to the events in Granada, you will quickly see how and why the terms black, Spanish, Latino, Indians, West Indians, Latin Americans, Negro colored, African, minorities have been forced in the minds of the people. You will see this again. Adjectives do not identify proper nouns, person, place, or thing. They only modify or describe. To accept these adjectives as identities is to be outside of the human family, i.e. denationalization and stripped of all rights. This principle is unrefutable and forced in language across the world. It is universal in nature. Principles, maxims, and the like must be taken into account and considered when dealing with any and all things. In Masonry, it's also referred to as standing on your square. Many lies have been told to the people of the North American continent. For example, they say blacks are descendants from slaves. Most of the time, this saying applies to dark-skinned people. They also say Negro and Negroid, etc., as in Negro features or Negro man or black woman, black children or colored people, etc. Black etymologically means pale. According to science, it means death. If one has ever attended a funeral of a dark-skinned person and observed their skin, it is the absence of light and appears a pale grayish hue. Black also means absent of light. Anthropomorphically, black is in relation to the Paleolithic man, a cave dweller, also known as the troglodyte nigger, a pale-skinned cave dwelling monkey, or a Neanderthal, a new man or a kind of man. The word negro in Spanish means black, all which leads back to the absence of light and pale, which leads to the Paleolithic troglodyte nigger, removing one yet again from the human family. After the fall of the dark-skinned Moors, they were to never be called Moors again. They were to be called Spanish, Indians, Latinos, blacks, niggers, Negroes, African Americans, etc., all of which is meant to denationalize and strip the rights of these fallen Moors. People are either named after the lands or the lands after the people. None of these said lands exist, although our people speak Spanish and we are fluent in Latin. As an identifier, we are not Spanish or Latino. Furthermore, America is one continent with many nation-states, and so is Africa. So if you were to claim that you were African American, you would still not properly be identifying which nation-state bloodline you belong to, thus denationalized. To invoke your rights, you must declare your nationality. Every man, woman, and child must confess and worship under their own vine and fig tree. Honor thy mothers and thy fathers, so that your days will be longer upon the earth land which thy Lord God, Jehovah, Allah, Yahweh, Yah, hath given thee. Excuse me. Holy Bible, St. John 15, 5. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and the words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as if I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. St. Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to the state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine right as citizens, according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and by principles, because to be a citizen of any government you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trusts upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. Every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers, and thy mothers, your day will be lengthened upon this earth. Noble Drew Ali, El-Haj Sharif Abdul Ali. Circle 7, Quran, chapter, this is, I'm bad with Roman numerals, 47, it says right there. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descent nature of his forefathers. When Drew Ali said other nations place their trust on issues and names formed by their forefathers, he was referring to international treaties and international laws. Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States of America. This is why you must seek the kingdom of God first, meaning find your nationality. And Matthew 6:33, all these things will be added unto you, meaning you will be protected by international law and your rights will be protected. Yeshua said, he's the vine and we are the branches. This is in relationship to chapter 47 of the Quran. We are who our forefathers were. They enforced and signed international laws and treaties, and if we keep his commandments, we then abide in his love. Most international law treaties were to bring peace and friendship. This is where the love comes from. We must keep these principles, like Yeshua and Drew Ali said, honor thy mothers and thy fathers. Using historical facts, mathematics, let me just set this right here. Language and arts, I will prove to you that most, if not all, so-called blacks in America were already here. And the modern historical description of history is a method used to continually denationalize the ancient ones, contemporarily known as the Great Moors. The blacks, Indians, Spanish, Latino, West Indians, African Americans, etc. are the same people, split up and divided in the mind to only cause more confusion, using the fake class paradigm perpetuated for the very purpose of separation, created by and molded by the aforementioned Francis Bernier, Charles Darwin, Carl Linnaeus, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, and the continuation of these false concepts by their current European descendants. Police, politicians, religious leaders, rappers, singers, teachers, mailmen, doctors, and the list continues. To prevent us from knowing what's actually going on, truths are purposely omitted from history. The harsh continuation of mistreatment from the Inquisition is a false phone call, when in fact it is genocide. Genocide, noun. Generally speaking, genocide does not necessarily mean the immediate destruction of a nation, except when accomplished by mass killings of all members of a nation. Just wait for the truck to go by. It is intended rather to signify a coordinated plan of different actions aimed at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of national groups, with the aim of annihilating the groups themselves. EtymonOnline.com. And then it just says Jamal Talib Abdullah, Squirrelfoot Bay. To explain a problem is halfway finding the solution. So that's the end of the preface. Etymology, Etymon and etymology. Etymology is one of the factors in deciding the legal and lawful definitions of words, terms, phrases, and ideas. The etymon is the true denotative, absolute meaning of a word. What most people who haven't been taught the rules of etymology is to skip the etymological brackets, ignoring what the word denotes, and enter into the linear entries, which are most commonly connotative definitions, or what the word could simply imply or suggest. American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster's 1828, Facsimile, first edition. Etymology, noun. That part of philology, I believe I'm saying that right, excuse me if I'm not, which explains the origin and I'm tongue-tied now, derivation of words, with a view to ascertain their radical or primary signification. In grammar, etymology comprehends the various inflections and modifications of words and shows how they're formed from their simple roots, the deduction of words from their originals, the analysis of a compound word into their primitives. Etymon, noun, an original root or primitive word. When it comes to knowing what a word actually means, it is important to know what etymon is. Etymon is the original meaning of a word as it first appears in history. Etymology is the study of words traced and transliterated throughout the history, its translation of spelling through different languages. I am particularly placing emphasis on the etymon because in our societies, connotative linguistics, or what you would call slang, is heavily promoted. In order to take our minds off of the factual principles that govern language, it may appear that slang is harmless, but if used in the wrong context, it can be very dangerous, as all law is specific, mean what you say. The principles of the etymon is used to study and critique other scholars. An example would be if I were to write a historical book about any ancient civilization in any BC time period, and I make claims that the word jelly was frequently used amongst the ancient ones, based on the history of the words and languages, the etymon, another scholar would instantly know or could easily find out that I would be lying, as the letter J did not enter the language until about the 1600s. Just as dribbling in basketball is one of the basic fundamentals to knowing and playing the game, etymon is the basic fundamentals and foundation to knowing, and using language. Just as a referee must know what constitutes a foul, a scholar must know how to detect a falsehood in language. If a referee sees an elbow throw, he calls the foul. If a person who knows the rules to the etymon sees a falsehood, he or she can call a foul or know when there is a trick being played. Below is a more detailed explanation of etymon and etymology. Feel free to skip this section and continue reading the next section. This is where he recommends certain books. He recommends Merriam-Webster's called 11th edition as a first purchase, as well as any and all dictionaries referenced herein for comparison and further scholarship. When using a dictionary to look up the meaning of the word, before going into its linear entry, one must look for the indicator of its parts of speech. Etymology is normally encased in brackets. I'm gonna go inside because it's getting kind of noisy. Let me just get the light. You must look at the in-case brackets and the true meaning of a word, and normally gives a brief synopsis on where the particular word comes from and the time period. Noun, pronoun, adjective, so it's just telling you noun is shown as an N, pronoun shown as that, adjective ADJ, verb is V, adverbs ADV, preposition says prep, conjunction is CONJ. This should immediately show you how the word can be used in a sentence. For example, the word yellow is an adjective, therefore can never be used as an identifier or a proper noun, but as a modifier nearly describing a person, place, thing, or idea, followed by the part of speech. The words etymology will usually be in brackets with capital letters, abbreviations, and transliterations of the word in different languages. The capital letters ME, Middle English, for example, indicates this time period of which language that word was transliterated from. Middle English ME is collectively the varieties of the English language spoken after the Norman Conquest, 1066 until the late 15th century. Scholarly opinion varies, but the Oxford English Dictionary specifies the period of 1150 to 1500. That was a Bing.com search, Middle English time period. Some dictionaries will have the time periods of each language in the appendix or in the explanation section. The sections where the time period exists will vary in name. For example, Merriam-Webster's College Dictionary, 11th edition, concern is a verb, and it shows you M-E, F-R, M-F, M-L, M-F, concern. From, to sift together, to mingle. And then it shows you all the breakdowns here. To sift, more certainly. And then it says A, to relate, to be about, B, to bear on, to have influence on, involve, also, be the business of, affair, or the problem concern us all. VB indicates it's a verb. ME indicates Middle English from Middle French, and Middle Latin from Late Latin. Then mentions its roots. VT means verb transitive, and in 15C places it in the 15th century and proceeds to the linear entry starting with 1A. So he's kind of showing you how to work the dictionary, how to read it. Virgin, noun, from Latin virginum. Nominative, Virgo, maiden, unwedded girl or woman. And then you just provided the link from Etymon. Let's see. It is an irrefutable fact that history and law must be taught together. Political moves and operations are based on events to help mold the future. How could you know when you are, how could you know where you are and where you stand if you don't know your history and where you've been? The same question applies to law. How can you tell which laws which laws will work if you don't base it off of events in the past, etc., in order to help mold and shape the future for generations? How many of you that have been to HBCU, historically black colleges and university, have ever received knowledge on the Moors bringing Europe out of the Dark Ages? Teaching them the 7 liberal arts, trivium, rhetoric, grammar, logic, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, quadrivium, I don't know what that is, music, art, arithmetic, and astrology. Did your professors teach you that Moors taught Europeans agriculture, jurisprudence, which is law, government, how to bathe, the concept of changing clothes according to the seasons, how to navigate the seas according to the stars? Polaris is fixed north. Did your professors teach you that Moors invented the first gun, known as the fire stick? I remember when I was younger, people used to say Europeans enslaved Africans because they had superior weapons, yet Africans invented the gun. When I found certain things out, I was amazed. I was not surprised that I didn't learn it in school because I get why they wouldn't teach it. But it's so Sorry, I was trying to make sure the page is in the screen. But it's so clear how our history is just so vilified. For example, I learned about Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and other Greek philosophers, philosophy and mythology, yet all of it is derived from what our ancestors taught them. But I was taught that some of these great Greek philosophers were so ahead of their time, blah, 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 when they got it from Africans who had the knowledge for generations. Some city halls and some governmental buildings are based on Moorish architecture. Notice the oval shape at the top of some governmental buildings, then look at a mosque. The United States of North America is the only country of both northern and southern continents whose national name is hidden. Its name is Morocco. The United States of Morocco and its republican form of government is under occupation by the foreign United States Corporation Company, operated by European colonial immigrants. It is also known as the United States Inc., the United States of America, the United States of America, all capital, United States of America Inc., the United States, USA, US. The United States Corporation Company was registered in France by Benjamin Franklin in 1754. It has gone bankrupt many times, and its corporate debt has been transferred on the backs of the natural people of the land, you, me, and our families. 1860s, 1913, 1928, etc. The unique style of government here in Morocco on the northern continent of America was established as the beacon of light for the rest of the world. By bringing the Europeans into our government, we established one governmental body with two national seals, one great seat pyramid, circle 7, and 2, the eagle with the 13 stars above its head, representing the 13 full moons, in the form of hexapla, as above, so below, representing the end of the thousands of years of wars, crusades, and inquisitions between the Moorish Empire and the British Empire, pale-skinned nations of Europe. You can purchase the book at www.riseofthemoors.org. The only de jure government of Morocco is the people, who established a republican form of government derived, molded, and shaped after Muslim law, the Iroquois law of the Great Peace, insomnomy, equal rights, and protection under the law for all, regardless of status, class, gender, religion, and nationality. Oftentimes, the real history of this nation is hidden in secret meanings and phrases. This can be directly related to the chopping down of the cherry tree that George Washington is so famously known for in 1791, symbolizing the removal of Moorish administration and government and overthrow the imperial divan to the democracy order that we have today in 2017/1437 Moorish calendar year. If you want to look up the Moorish calendar year, you could just Google the Islamic calendar finder, and they are a bit off. Like, not everybody uses the same calendar, so remember that. It is often quoted in a paraphrase that George Washington says, "I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down my father's cherry tree." It just so happens that we Moors fathered the Europeans into government. The Star-Spangled training the tongue tie. The Star-Spangled trading banner, there we go, is not the American flag. It is a banner that represents the amity and commerce between peace and friendship treaty of 1786-1787 between the European colonies and the Moroccan Empire. The trading banner was used to mark the colonial vessels of the sea, on the sea, and land to prevent the Moroccan Empire from seizing their ships and hold them for ransom. The banner displayed allegiance to our empire as we are in constant turmoil against other European nations, ranging from the Austro-Turkish War, 1663 to 1664, the Great Turkish War, 1683, Ottoman-Phoenician War, 1714 through 1718, the Battle of Aspinza, fought on April 20th, 1770 between the Georgians, Russo-Turkish War, 1768-1774, and 1787 to 1792, etc. In order to protect our new friends, the banner was flown representing the original 13 colonies in contract agreement with the Moroccan Empire. This is a quote. Not only were there hundreds of thousands of Europeans captured and held for ransom by the Moors during the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s, but also hundreds of thousands of Europeans were transported from England to the English colonies in North America, with tens of thousands bound in chains during the same time period. Tribute treaties and huge tributes to the European powers paid to the Moroccan Empire to pass unmolested on the high seas, and ransom payment given to the Moroccan Empire for the release of Europeans held in Moorish captivity. Moor and Masonry. That was a quote from Moors and Masonry by Brother Abdullah El Talib Mozi Bey. Here's the Moroccan American flag. 5-pointed green star represents Venus in the middle. This is the Continental flag, also known as the Bunker Hill flag, and the Star-Spangled trading banner representing the amity and commerce between the Moorish Empire and the colony of the various European tribes. Left is a depiction of George Washington cutting down the American flag, the cherry tree. Also, below is a presidential address made by Washington with the political intent to convert all of the districts of the lands we allotted to them into states, i.e. conversion. These actions are some of the reasons he is regarded as the first founding father to modern Europeans, and also why he has a Masonic lodge named after him in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen of the Senate. This is, remember, this is from George Washington. This is dated March 4th, 1791. Oh, there we go. Pursuant to the powers vested in me by the act entitled, an act repealing after the last day of June next, the duties heretofore laid upon distilled spirits imported from abroad and laying others in their stead, and also upon spirits distilled within the United States, and for appropriating the same. I have thought fit to divide the United States into the following districts, namely, the District of New Hampshire to consist of the state of New Hampshire, the District of Massachusetts to consist of the state of Massachusetts, the District of Rhode Island and the Providence Plantations to consist of the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, District of Connecticut. Just make sure we're there. All right. The District of Vermont to consist of the state of Vermont, the District of New York to consist of the state of New York, the District of New Jersey to consist of the state of New Jersey, the District of Philadelphia to consist of the state of Pennsylvania, to consist of the state of Pennsylvania, the District of Delaware to consist of the state of Delaware, the District of Maryland to consist of the state of Maryland, Virginia, I'm just going to do that, North Carolina, South Carolina, and the District of Georgia. And I hereby nominate as supervisors of the said districts, respectively, the following persons, viz., I'm assuming that means vizier. For the District of New Hampshire, Joshua Wentworth. For the District of Massachusetts, Nathaniel Gorham. For the District of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, John S. Dexter. For the District of Connecticut, John Chester. For the District of Vermont, Noah Smith. For the District of New York, William S. Smith. For the District of New Jersey, Aaron Dunham. For the District of Pennsylvania, George Clymer. For the District of Delaware, Henry Latimer. For the District of Maryland, George Gale. For the District of Virginia, Edward Carrington. For the District of North Carolina, William Polk. For the District of South Carolina, Daniel Stevens. For the District of Georgia, John Matthews. And it was signed by George Washington. And the source is a compilation of the messages and papers of the Presidents, Volume 1, Part 1, George Washington. And the link is in the book. I often come across this question, how do I become a Moor? Asking a question like that is asking that question is like a Chinese person asking, how do I become Chinese? It's in your bloodline. It's your birthright. You need not to do anything but be yourself. The only charge is for you to study your law, study your history, and study your culture, as this is expected from all other nationals. Once you've studied well, you then study yourself. In Masonry, knowing of self to include nationality is what makes you free and accepted. Once you declare who you are accepted. You are held to the standards and morals of your own nation, To not only know of your nationality and divine creed is to be missing 2/5 of self. Thus, you are 3/5 of a human. Mind, body, soul, nationality, and religion are the 5 parts. The standards and moral principle is where the jury of your own national peers is derived from in the Constitution, where you have the right to be viewed by your own people. Your own people ought to hold you accountable, as this is the natural order of things. But they too must be mentally competent and not 3/5 of a human, i.e. in proprio persona, sui juris. To be held and judged strictly by a foreigner, it is a violation of nature to alleviate this issue. Article 3 of the Constitution deals with diversity of citizenship, as well as Article 9 of the Treaty of Tripoli of 1796, Article 20, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786. To remove us from international, constitutional, and treaty law protections, the unconstitutional 14th Amendment was created by European crusaders who infiltrated the Republic to ensure that anyone who claims to be a part of their system immediately waives all of their constitutional rights by consent and agreement to be subjects as distinguished from nationals. Classification of citizenship. 1. Nationals are natives of the land, part and parcel, jus sanguine, aboriginal and indigenous. 2. Naturalized citizens are foreigners whom the nationals accept into their society. 3. Subject citizenship are those subject to the law, those individuals who do not have a say in the administration of government nor the creation of laws. They must obey the law discriminately. Corporations may fall into this category. 4. Aliens/foreigners, individuals who maintain political allegiance to their national government, who may also be traveling to another country on a visa, business trip, distinguished guests, refugees, etc. The United States, as we are taught, the organic states, bound together by common law, constitutional republican principles, the country Morocco is distinguished from the United States, upper U, which is defined as a contract, which contract means federal, corporation and not a country. By their own definition, its subject citizens can never say that they were tricked, as all law is contract and consent. See Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, Number 15. The 14th Amendment makes you subject of the corporation, not a citizen of a country/nation. The 14th Amendment makes you a subject of the corporation, not a citizen of a country or nation. I just had to repeat that just in case. Morocco, in treaty agreement with foreign European colonizers to which the Treaty of Peace and Friendship predate the Constitution, is what ensures the Europeans safe egress and regress to and from this continent, as well as safety and security on the land and their endeavors in commerce. To counter the peace-driven principles of the Republican form of government, Roman spies/inquisitionists have infiltrated our seats of government here in America. The Maghreb, guided by their secret oaths and motives, rooted in the secret treaty of Verona, 1213 AD, which its purpose is to overthrow all moral Republican form of government in places which they exist and prevent them from exiting in places they are not known yet. And prevent them from existing in places they are not yet known. Inclusive of the plans to use dogma, guised as religion, for purposes of mind control, they have devised an intricately weaved web that has been woven for generations, perfected over time, ensuring the conversion of our imperial divan here in Almarac, America. The Intacatera Divina Church Bull of 1493 also acts as the land stealing doctrine of discovery operation, hidden and excused as the work of God, or doing God's work, forcibly converting all the people of America, Al-Morocc, the Maghreb, to the Nicene Constantinople Creed, guised as Christianity, stipulated after Christopher Columbus's travel and survey of this land under the authority of the Christian King Ferdinand and the Christian Queen Isabella, after our fall in Granada, 1492. In continuation of the secret Treaty of Verona, the Republican form of government had to be undermined in order for the Inquisition democracy order to be established because of its relationship to the Moors and European deists / Muslim sons / Masons who established it. Notably beginning with the adjournment of Congress in 1861, following the adjournment of Congress, which in fact was an internal overthrow, aka the coup d'etat. Civil war broke out in 1862. The State of the Union laid in the balance between those who desired the unity between the Moors and the pale-skinned nations of Europe, the colonists, and those inquisitionists, along within the aid of some conversos and moriscos who were desired to continue the suppression of the Moorish imperial divan and nation. In modern times, the true history is vilified, coded, and watered down. As an example, the Civil War is often depicted as the North divided against the South because the South wished to keep humans in bondage, and the North did not. Much of history has been distorted to help the Europeans maintain administrative control over the Moorish estates. Although the division of the North and South is true in part, it is not the whole truth. It is not an accident that Columbus renamed us when he arrived to the Al-Morocc, American islands. Continuing on with the land-stealing doctrine of discovery operations, many knights and clergymen for the popes of Rome, for example, the acts perpetuated by Roger Williams to the native Moorish Narragansett tribe is a clear indicator that he was in fact operating with the malicious intent of the Intercatera Divina tribe. Malicious intent of the Intercatera Divina Church Bull of 1493, inclusive of the secret Treaty of Verona, 1213. Both documents, amongst others, are the mission statements for overthrowing all Aboriginal peoples, stealing their lands, enforcing the Nicene Constantinople Creed, guised as Christianity, on all Aboriginal people of North, South, Central America, to include all of the adjoining islands. These documents are what compromised the doctrine of discovery. The clergyman Roger Williams is also known for establishing the first Baptist church in America, here in the Narragansett Territory in 1638. Standing as prima facie evidence to the Intercatera Divina Church Bull of 1493 being the charter granted by Pope Alexander VI. Most modern scholars often display Williams as a meditator, often attempting to bring peace amongst the native tribes and the unwanted European settlers on our lands. Oftentimes, wars, skirmishes, and battles broke out amongst many Moorish tribes as a result of conversos and moriscos taking sides with European crusaders. As an example, the battles between the Narragansett and Pequot, 1636 through 1638, are many tribes, confederations, and political groups often had debates and disagreements in regards to the European conquistadors. These types of actions can be directly expressed and related to the many skirmishes and battles that took place in Al-Andalus, Spain, between the many Moorish tribes for political control over that part of Europe. The constant struggle of either accepting the Europeans or rejecting them, oftentimes leading to switching off political factions and the like. These actions inevitably led to our forfeiture of control in that area, Spain, and here in America. It is evident that the Europeans are clearly administrating our lands today They could not defeat us physically, so they need us to defeat ourselves. Having served in the military, divide and conquer has often proven to be an extremely effective logistical tool used to defeat and gain control over an enemy. The divide and conquer schisms strategy is still used to this very day. And then this is a quote from the book called The Golden Age of the Moors. It's from page 55 and 56. It says, with the conquest and settlement of Spain, the Arabs developed patterns of racial bias towards the Berbers. This kind of attitude often led to hostile feelings, open rebellions, and shifting alliances between Arab, Berber, and Christian factions of the Iberian Peninsula. Note, both Arabs and Berbers have been and are distinctly and discriminately defined as Moors. In the early part of the 13th century, the Moorish power in Spain began to decline. Unfortunately, the Muslims, due to the religious and political differences, began to split into factions and wage war amongst themselves. At the same time, the Christians of Europe, having absorbed the science and culture of Moors, which enabled them to bring to an end the long night of the Dark Ages, began to form a united front in order to drive the Moors back into Africa. The dominions of the Almohades were slowly but surely captured by the Christian armies. That's also from Golden Age of the Moors, page 88. Nevertheless, Roger Williams posed as a friend, but his actions indeed proved him an enemy. In reflection, proving that he was operating out of the secret Treaty of Verona, Doctrine of Discovery, Unum Sanctum policies of the Inter Caetera Divina Church Bull of 1493, A Italia, papal bulls decreed by the popes, Williams was granted a charter from England to establish Providence. Doing so is evidence to the traitorous acts of conversion made against the native people of the land and to the continued denationalization, land theft, birthright stealing operations. It serves to do the same thing George Washington did in his acts of conversion of 1791 to establish a fraudulent jurisdiction over the land and her people. Again, this is called Are You Confused About Law? This is Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey's first book, written in 2016-2017. There's only a few copies left, physical copies left available on www.riseofthemoors.org. There is a PDF available that you can print out. Just as Europeans began to gain power off of our division in Europe, the same tactics were used here on the Moroccan American continent. They amalgamated into our culture, which Roger Williams is very well known for studying in Narragansett, and thrived off of the wars that we fought against one another. In fact, the Europeans were only able to gain power here due to the constant battling amongst ourselves and fellow tribesmen in other geographical areas. Unfortunately, some of us would join the European political factions and fight against other Moorish tribes. If you were to look into history, you will learn that around the same time we allowed Europeans to establish the Virginia colony in the 1600s, the colonization of America by the mixed European nations, Swedish, French, Spanish, English, Dutch, were often met with armed assaults to prevent them from doing so. In some of these wars, Moorish tribes given the misnomer, look up what a misnomer is, Indians, fought alongside Europeans, which ended in their victory over crucial territorial areas. The Beaver Wars, Iroquois Wars, 1609 to 1701. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Oh, he broke it down right here. Haudenosaunee Confederation against the French near the Great Lakes. Anglo-Powhatan Wars, 1610 through 1614, 1622 through 32, 1644 through 46. The Seneca against the Virginia colony. The Pequot Wars against the English, Narragansett, and Mohegan, which is modern day, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Kieft or Wappinger War of 1643 through 45, The Lenape Moorish tribe against the Dutch, modern-day New York and New Jersey. The Beaver Wars continued as the Pontiac War in 1763 through 66 near the Great Lakes. Defeat in these areas led to the Ordinance of 1787, the expansion of colonial powers near modern-day Chicago, Detroit, upstate New York, etc. This defeat also led to the Niagara Movement in 1905 that now denationalized Moorish tribes, so-called Indian and blacks, organized in attempts to stop the violence against our people in the Great Lakes area. Oftentimes, the Europeans would kill our women and throw them over, and they used to call the Niagara Falls the Nigger Falls. So it is on risingthemoors.org. We just got them in a few days ago. There's only a few copies left. I want to say probably less than, I would say like maybe 12 copies, physical copies left. As soon as he got them a few days ago, they started running out. So I felt it was important to just read some of this. Again, there's a PDF. You can print it until he decides to buy new books whenever he wants to re-release them. Historically, we Narragansetts were one of the leading political confederations of the eastern seaboard, controlling the west of Narragansett Bay, B-E-Y, in present Rhode Island, and also portions of Connecticut. And then he puts the tribal name of the word Connecticut. Territory in eastern Massachusetts, Wampanoag Territory from the Providence River on the northeast to the Pawcatuck River on the southwest. So this was like... a lot of this was Narragansett territory all the way to Long Island. In alliance with the enforcement of religion in direct relationship to the weekly conversion schools forced on Moors, Muslims in Europe, the Christian Black Codes were created in 1724. Precedent to the Codes Noir, in 1712, the Willie Lynch Manual is created to deal with the rebellious Moors. It includes plans to brainwash the Moorish tribes to divide us in the mind. The Europeans decided to call some of us black, some of us Indian, some of us Spanish, some of us Negro, etc. Establish various convoluted parts of our history in different forms, directed and designed towards each specific group to cause confusion and prevent the unity amongst the different groups. So-called Indians are to be taught that many of their ancestors were killed off to make up for the false history that millions of blacks were transferred here, so that even though we see each other, blacks and Indians, we have a false idea that we are a separate people, when in fact, if you combine the number of blacks and the number of Indians, it is clear that we outnumber the Europeans, as the millions of us that they make claim to have massacred is a lie. The so-called Indians that disappeared or who were massacred are the same people who think they are black today. But so-called Indian and so-called blacks are of ancient Moabite and Canaanite blood. The manual teaches to divide the young against the old, the weak against the strong, dark skin against the fair skin, tall against the short, smart against the dumb, to beat men in front of women and children. Convince the men to dishonor their women. Teach the children to be disobedient to their parents, but obedient to the masters, etc. This type of cause and effect is in fact the very reason why today European Inquisitionists, Moriscos, and Conversos often show our people being beaten and killed by police on TV, and various social media outlets, to include the various hangings in relation to the Black History Month promoted by black leaders, all of which are promoted and displayed to cause fear in our hearts and minds. The scaffold remained for over 300 years into the 19th century, with 4 large statues as the corners known as the 4 prophets. The statues were hollowed, and the condemned would be put inside to die slowly in the flames. In this way, even if the number of burnings was not high, fear could be implanted deep in the heart of society. Inquisition Reign of Fear by Toby Green, page 34. The Christian codes, also known as the Codes Noir, is an established set of rules in regards to control Christian property, i.e. blacks, Indians, Spanish, colored, etc. Subsequently, in the 1740s, during what is known as the First Great Awakening, colonists forced many Aboriginal Narragansett Moors to convert to Christianity, conversos. This took place within several territories of North America. It is obvious that the children were taken from the families and forced to convert to Christianity. Oftentimes, the colonizers would set up special schools for the children where this converting would take place. It is also referred to as breeding in history schools. Breeding in history, falsely promoted as educating natives and the like. Today, these same schools exist. They can be and are identified by their 501c3 and C4 status granted to them by the Inquisition Revenue Service, the IRS. Guised as the Internal Revenue Service, a 501c3 agreement ensures that whomever agrees to it agrees to be strictly regulated by and under the IRS, as well as placed on a strict curriculum as stipulated by the IRS to ensure the brainwashing process remains intact and the true history is not taught. Sellouts like the NAACP and the various colored black and the various colored I lost my spot. Here we go. Colored and black organizations to include various Indian groups, councils, schools, and the like, for example, get funded by publishing companies to keep and promote the denationalization game of Indian and black. They also get to maintain their 501c3 tax-exempt non-profit status as long as they continue to sell their own people into corporate wardship/slavery/bondage, all of which benefits the European to maintain administrative control on our lands. They are what some would call sellouts, Uncle Toms, or as Noble Drew Ali taught us to refer them as dirty Moors. Those who know the truth yet continue to sell their own people out for a tiny benefit. I'm gonna butcher this word right here. I'm not gonna try. All right, I'll try. Ameliorating. I didn't say it right, but you can read what it says. You can look that up for yourself, please. Their own interest, they're Judas. They are not for the people. They are for themselves. See Genesis 25:31-34. No historian of the Maya who values their reputation and career will admit Africans were in the Americas before Columbus arrived. When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler, that's in page 42. The Black Codes had only been created less than 20 years prior to the Great Awakening, molding the mind of children. They stood as an easy task for the colonizers. The genocidal act of separating the children from the parents in a malicious Parents Patria Act to gain control over the minds of the children by forcing the parents into reservations and plantations, which are now what the modern-day jobs are intended to keep the parents busy working and abandon their children to be raised by state public school or in other cases 501c3 and other charter or special and private schools. These same tactics were used against both Indians and blacks, as we are the same people divided in the mind only. This is often why the state makes attending their school mandatory to help deal with this issue. Hey, enough. The UN has made declarations on the rights of a child and on human rights. Come. Inside, go lay down. Which clearly state that the parents have the first initial say on the education of their children, and states cannot force parents to send them to their indoctrination camps, public schools, in attempts to end the brainwashing and breeding operations of the Inquisition. In April 1497, during Lent, Manuel ordered the forcible baptism of Jewish children under the age of 14. These children were to be taken from their parents, sent to live elsewhere, and educated in the Christian faith at the king's expense. And that's from the, and that's from the Inquisition Reign of Fear by Toby Green, page 52. Exactly like the Iberian Peninsula, many Moors were forced into the Nicene Constantinople Creed, guised as Christianity, naming those who converted as Moriscos. Eventually, they were to be called Spanish here in the Maghreb, Alaska, Morocco, the most extreme west, North America. We Moors have been branded Indian and Blackamoor in order to further remove the national identity and history of our Moorish bloodline. The word Moor was dropped, and now we are just referred to as black. Those of us who were branded Indian and who further converted to the spelling of our birthright, converted to the selling of our birthright as organized as federally recognized Indians under the United States Corporation Company and its enclave, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, those of us branded black who further converted organized under the United States Corporation Company as the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and various other Christian and church organizations to include mosques, synagogues, and the like. A symbol of the forfeiture of all hereditaments, denationalization, and submission to the European Christian Roman oligarchy. In 1978, the Narragansett tribe, it's spelled in here Narragansett. That's the way Europeans say it and spell it. Traditionally, it's called Nahigansett. So if you hear me say Nahigansett, that's why. The Nahigansett tribe signed a joint memorandum of understanding in 1978. You should look that up for whenever these Indians try to tell you that they're Indians and they're not. With the corporate state of Rhode Island, the corporate state transferred a total of 1,800 acres to the corporation formed to hold the land in trust for the so-called Indians. In exchange, the denationalized Moors agreed to be subject to the corporate laws of Rhode Island, agreeing that any corporate laws created by the corporate state would apply to them and their people, now falsely designated as Indians. That's crazy. In the book, Are You in Denial of Your Ancestry?, written by our Cherokee brother and elder, Taj Tariq Bey, he notably mentions that many of us who fought against the European Inquisition and theft of our lands were forced onto reservations directly expressed and related to hoods and ghettos today. From what I can tell, based on my research, it also stood as an attempt to further cause division between us, placing those of us who willingly surrendered and those of us who would not to be forced to live together, leading to more division and hatred between us. Similar grievances between those who sold out and began to work with the Europeans is one of the major reasons for the different battles and hatreds between the Nahigansett and the Pequot Moors. Also in his book, he mentions a quote from William Katz. According to the European William Katz, who wrote the book Black Indians, he says during an interview that there was no difference and they were not able to separate them, blacks and Indians, as a people. And that was on page 15 of that book. The Englishmen who had colonized the western shores of the Atlantic not more than a generation before, Gross spoke of the Indians there as being as black as gypsies. In 1676, the native races of New England were spoken of indifferently as Indians and Moors, and our British Indians are remembered as Moors. Ancient and Modern Britons by David Mack Ritchie, page 375. All these quotes, he'll always give the reference. The slow trickling continuation of the Inquisition Crusades, operations against Moors, issued and affirmed by the Inter Caetera Divina Church Bull of 1493, Secret Treaty of Verona 1213, Unum Sanctum of 1302, Dum Diverses of 1452, Militia Templi and Militia Diae of 1145, Pietati Proximum, I don't speak Latin, well I do, but not the old Latin, so excuse me for butchering some of this, of 1234, Si Vera Sunt 1239, Rex Pontificus 1234, Romanus Pontifex of 1455, Ad Extrepanda of 1252, Christian Black Codes, Codes Noir of 1724, the Willie Lynch Manual of 1712, the Inquisition Revenue Service of 1862, General Education Board of 1902, Federal Reserve Act of 1913, Adjournment of Congress 1861, 14th Amendment 1864, Act of Congress 1871, Rex 84 King Alfred, Executive Order, it says 11490, Sestq V of 1666. Alia, Land stealing operations is the hypothecation of all present and future properties of American nationals and citizens in 1913, removing all Aboriginal titles of ownership. Removing all Aboriginal allodial titles of ownership of all estates. I need to get a little ruler. Free and clear of any and all liens, debts, etc., and replacing them with mortgages, deeds, and Indian titles. Indian title is not greater than allodial title. Please look that up. Look up the legal definition of both, and you'll see which holds more weight. Indian title, which is given by Europeans, or allodial title, which can't be given. Free and clear of any and all liens, debts, etc., and replacing them with mortgages, deeds, and Indian titles. Free, I'm going to read that again. Under trust held by the United States Corporation Company. This is directly related to the Christian Black Codes as it states its subjects / Christian property / chattel and wards of the state can never own property. All mortgages and deeds are merely evidences of debts and or liens and is not recognized as ownership of property. The only way to truly own property is through allodial title. The pseudo-Indian title is just that, a fake. If one were to read the definition of Indian title, Indian tribal property, and Indian lands in Henry Campbell's Black Law Dictionary 5th edition, it will state that it is lands, title, and real property not recognized as ownership to which the titles are vested in the United States, which also may be public property of the United States, thereby ceding / giving up the rights to the property, etc., to the United States, to which the holder of said instruments, deeds / mortgages / Indian title are not recognized as owners, and the instruments not recognized as ownership nor creating title to property. Hence the JMOU. I'm not sure what that means. Someone might know what that means. Similar to the Roman Pontifex of 1455, which allowed Portugal to rights over the estates of West African Moors that they discovered by conquest at the Berlin Conference, 1884 through 85, the European nations again divided the conquered Moorish Ottoman lands amongst themselves. In order to establish jurisdiction over the land and people, personam jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction, names such as New England, Rhode Island, and European family names have been placed on the Aboriginal and indigenous people of the land, etc. These names, Smith, Jones, Johnson, Sanders, Conroy, Latimer, Bauer, Wagner, Williams, the United States Corporation Company as distinguished from the organic United States of America and her republican form of government bound by common law principles, Providence, Jamestown, Roger Williams Park, Roger Williams Housing, etc., belong to Europe therefore Europe has jurisdiction over all things to include people who claim to be in and of those names. Persuade, maybe that's supposed to be persuade, those Gentiles of America to partake of the mercenaries of Europe, and then shall be fulfilled what is written by the prophet Malachi, from the rising of the sun in Europe to the going down of the same in America. My name shall be great among the Gentiles, so I desire to hope and pray your unworthy countryman Roger Williams. A key into the language of America by Roger Williams. Note, here in the Narragansett Territory, falsely named Providence, Rhode Island, there are many places which are named after the European Roman Inquisitor and clergyman Roger Williams. Places like the Park Zoo, the park, the medical center, the housing, university, elementary school, to give honor to the Inquisitor who helped infiltrate and conquer the Narragansett tribe of Moors. To suppress the Moorish nationals, we were denationalized, branded black and Indian, and our government was overthrown internally in 1861. And efforts to stay in power in civil war broke out in 1862, but the democracy order ended up taking control, and our government was then moved to the District of Columbia, known as the Acts of Congress of 1871. They have been running our government in a mob fashion ever since. In short, Morocco is under occupation, and the harsh mistreatments perpetuated against Moors, branded blacks, Indians, and coloreds are continued genocide operations of the Crusades and Inquisitionists, of all of which are acts of genocide and misconstrued as racism to keep us in a false argument, as the real issue is birthright theft and estate conversion, to which the foreign Europeans are doing terrible things across the world in our name, as we are the true Americans and do not even know it collectively. What is genocide? In the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, known as the Genocide Convention, defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethical, or racial or religious group. Killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group the conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or parts, imposing measures intended to prevent birthrights within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, and that is the link provided. The Department of Child, Youth, and Family court, birth control, police terrorism, genetically modified organisms in the food, fluoride in the water, gentrification, constant reminders of our ancestors being whipped, beat, attacked by dogs, hung by a rope, etc., is mental warfare / propaganda. Racism is not a crime. Genocide is. No international court will hear the issue of racism. Race is the human species. The word race means to shoot out, a people of a common descent. As we all shut out of one source, ism is an action suffix meaning to practice. Racism is the practice of continuing the human race. Genocide is the deliberate plan to either slowly or abruptly, systemically destroy a people. Terrorism, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. And just to give this a little bit more weight, there is case law. It's a case called Peoples versus Detroit, where it was a bunch of firefighters who were fired or laid off. A bunch of them sued and claimed that they were discriminated against because of their race, and they were denied and they lost the case. But the one or two that said that the fire station was discriminating against their national origin ended up winning that case. And that's called Peoples versus Detroit. So it just further proves that racism is not a thing. Genocide is, and you want to sue based on discrimination of your national origin, not discrimination against your race. So this is the relationship between Venus and the Wampanoag Belt. Venus, the five-pointed green star. The star of Venus represents love, feminine energy, and fertility. It also stands as a symbol of the Moorish Al-Moroccan American flag, each point representing the 5 nations and or 5 points of light. 5 principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, all connected, restored back to us by Prophet Noble Ali. Green represents the color of the star Venus and her alchemical metal copper. When copper is exposed to the elements, it experiences a series of chemical reaction that gives a pale green outer layer called a patina. Prophet Noble Ali is also responsible for restoring the chopped cherry tree, Al-Moroccan American flag, out of the hidden vaults of Washington. Excuse me. This is the Hiawatha Wampanoag Belt. The Hiawatha studied the works of the prophet Daganawida. Honoring Daganawida, similar to the prophet Muhammad, he unified the separate confederations in his time. Hiawatha is known for the unification of the Iroquois Confederacy. The wampum represents that unification of peace amongst the 5 nations: Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. The color purple is associated with royalty, and white is purity. The white lines connecting each square represents unity. The spade shape, or the tree of peace in the middle, represents the 5 confederations dropping their weapons and coming in peace. The Iroquois were responsible for helping father Europeans in forming the First Continental Congress, as well as drafting the American Constitution. Relate the middle tree of peace to the chopping down of the cherry tree as well. The 5 nations, or the 5 civilized tribes, are truly the Moorish titles of nobility, codified Ali, Al, Bey, Dey, and El. See section marked House Joint Resolution number 75. The European pseudo-colored scholars also try to portray us in history as savage, uncivilized people to cover up the fact that we civilized them and brought them into moral government out of the Dark Ages. Ali, exalted and earned title. It is not self-assigned, nor is it given at birth. For all you Alis out there claiming to be Ali, sorry. It is given for supreme courage, omnipotence, and accomplishments. Technically, not everybody's supposed to even have El or Bey as titles. Not everybody's supposed to have a title, because not everybody, I'm just going to reserve that comment. Never mind. But not everybody's supposed to have the El Bey or anything like that. Not to say that you can't have it. Just do some more research. L's usually given to women creators of law, legislative branch of government, Congress, the 7 Eloah or Elohim, the creative planetary forces having an effect on the earth. 1 is Sunday, Domingo. 2, Moon, Monday. 3, Mars, Tuesday, Martes. 4, Mercury is Wednesday is represented by Mercury, miércoles. 5, Jupiter is Thursday, jueves. 6 is Venus, Friday / viernes. Saturday is Saturn, sábado. Bey enforcers of law, obey the law. Executive branch of government, governors, also sheriffs, sheiks, sachems, sagamores, chief, poatan, lord. Al is master of mathematics, geometry, psychology, science. Dey means masters of astrology, cosmology, etc. They may also be used to signify a governor. Have you ever questioned why it states that the United States can't grant titles of nobility in the Constitution? Because this is not their land. They're colonizers. The heirs to the land, the Aboriginal people, are the only nobles of the land by birthright. Do you know what those titles are? They codify it by saying the 5 civilized tribes. They always try to portray us as barbarians and savages. Yet, if it weren't for the Iroquois Confederation, there would not have been a First Continental Congress nor a constitution. Those 5 titles of nobility are Ali, Al, Bey, Dey, and El. Check the congressional record, House Joint Resolution 75. Prophet de Ganawida's name means 2 river currents flowing together, representing the flow of Kundalini energy in the body, activating the pineal gland or the 6th chakra. The same symbol used by hospitals today. So these are like historical facts, trust and events, wars, inquisitions, crusades, church bulls, and alia. Excuse me. The discussion of Moorish militarism begins distinctly. Sorry, my hand's all up on the page. Begins distinctly with the ancient marital conflicts between Rome and Carthage. Moorish soldiers are mentioned as early as the expedition to Sicily in 406 BC. They are similarly mentioned in Livy's account of the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC. That's from the Golden Age of the Moors, page 45. Here's some of the wars that have happened. Greco-Persian War, Sicilian War, 3 of them apparently. Punic War, Hannibal Father's Hamilcan, 24 BC. I'm not going to go through all of these because I'm going to butcher half the names, but you see these are all the wars. some of the wars, not all the wars, excuse me. After murdering Prophet Yeshua ben Ibn Yosef in 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine called for the Council of Nicaea, which authorized the Roman clergy by vote to change Yeshua's name to Jesus the Christ, representing the peace and justice. Yeshua taught Jesus. Representing the peace and justice Yeshua taught. Jesus means justice, and the degree of knowledge, light / activation of the pineal gland, Krishna, Christ degree, activation of the Jew, he had reached for their pale-skinned nations of Europe. Earthly salvation. Congressional responses for mass. He's just showing how the Nicene Creed is part of Christianity. And if you go into any Catholic church, they still read that. The above image is a leaflet from the church located at St. Thomas Regional School, and he gives the address. The Roman Emperor Constantine creates New Rome, the Byzantine Empire, in 1330 AD. Emperor Theodosius the first declared the Nicene Creed as the official religion of Rome. Then the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. The Roman nations founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. Jesus himself was one of the true blood of ancient Canaanite and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa, seeking to redeem his people in those days from the pressure of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. Rome crucified him according to their law. The European had peace for a long time until Muhammad I came upon the scene and fulfilled the works of Jesus of Nazareth. The holy teachings of Jesus The holy teachings of Jesus was to the common people to redeem them from under the great pressure of the hands of the unjust, that the rulers and the rich which would not oppress the poor, also that the lion and the lamb may lay down together, and neither would be harmed when morning came. These teachings were not accepted by the rulers, neither by rich, because they loved principles of the 10 Commandments. Through the 10 Commandments, the rulers and rich live while the poor suffer and die. The lamb is the poor people, the lion are the rulers and the rich, and through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, all men are one and equal to seek their own destiny and to worship under their own vine and fig tree, after the principles of the holy and divine laws of their forefathers. Wow, I'm not even on the page, sorry. All nations of the earth in these modern days are seeking peace, but there is one true divine way that peace may be obtained in these days, and it is through love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice being taught universally to all nations in all lands. That's in the Holy Quran of Moorish, Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, chapter 46, the beginning of Christianity. Genealogy of Jesus: Abraham, Boaz by Ruth. Ruth was a Moabite. Jesse, King David. Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph and Joseph by Mary. The Old Testament is translated out of Aramaic in 450 AD. First plans for the Vatican in 500 AD. This is just like a timeline. The Persian/Roman War, 505 through 557 AD. Following the Persian-Roman War, a time period of peace was reached, and an agreement stated that Rome would pay 30,000 in gold annually to the Persians. Treaty of Hudaybiyah, unification of Islam, was in 1628 AD. Moors led by Tariq ibn Zayed enter into Al-Andalusia, Spain, by way of the Great Strait of Gibraltar, Gibraltariq, Mountain of Tariq, and very easily defeated the Christian Crusaders under the authority of Roderick, king of the Visigoths, also known as the Umayyad conquest of Hispania, 711 AD. Battle of Tours, Poitiers, France. The Moorish seizure of Europe was countered by the King Charles Martel, Charles the Hammer, and the Moors were rerouted back into Spain in 1732 AD. And then there's a little map. I'm going to answer your questions. I have 10 more pages that I'm going to read from this book, and I'll go back and read all the comments. So if you have questions, comments, or concerns, put them in now, and I'll get to them. Like I said, I'm reading up until page 38. We're on 27 right now. Alfonso the First, Spanish king of Asturias, Spain, 739 through 757, launched the conquest against the Moorish Empire in the port city of Santander. Wow, that sounds like Santander Bank, huh? The northwest city of Glacia and Leon, Spain. Alfonso III, Alfonso the Great, king of Asturias, Spain, 866 through 909, continued the wars against the Moors as Alfonso the First and Second before him, as did Alfonso the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth, a generational war. The European Renaissance, it was also known as the Rebirth, out of the Dark Ages, is accredited to the Moors in Spain, over 700 years of teaching and ruling. The Rebirth took place around the 13th century, reached its peak around the 16th century, and spread to the rest of Europe in the 17th century. Almoravid Moors took control over Spain. The Almoravids were originally called the Morabites, meaning champions of the faith. They would often combat injustices such as forced taxation, 1031 AD. In 1062, the Morabites or Almoravid Moors drove back the Christian powers. Yusuf I entered into Europe with a mixed army of men, Senegalese, Arabian, and Moorish brigades, in effort to defeat Alfonso VI with the mixed army of 70,000 men from the kingdoms of Almeria, Badajoz, Granada, and Seville. Christians captured Toledo in 1085 AD. Yusuf ibn Tashifin, sorry for these butchered names, leader of the Moroccan Almoravid Empire, stops Alfonso VI's Battle of Sagradas of Azala. I'm not gonna do that. He is also known as the co-founder of Marrakesh, along with Abu Abdullah al-Kam by Amarilla. This is in 1086 AD, and Pope Urban II orders the first crusade against the Moors in 1095 AD. This is more of like a timeline, again, so you get a historical background of how this stuff happened. Moors began to follow the idol gods of Europe due to European indoctrination to the dogmatic principles of the Nicene Creed guised against Christianity. This assisted in the divide and conquer tools to win against our people. Converted Moors were often used as infiltrators, spies, and betrayed their fellow Moors, their fellow Moors, forgetting the one true universal God, honoring their brothers and sisters for the promises Rome had to offer, leading to the trickled decline of the Moorish Empire. So this whole timeline is leading up to how the Moors fell, because the Moors ruled for at least, they only tell you about 1,000 years of rule, really, but the fact of the matter is it could have been much longer than that. History only tells us for 1,000 years, but this is the timeline leading up to when they fell. The King's Knights Templar is founded in 1119 AD. Pope Innocenti II endorses the Knights Templar and promises ownership of all Moorish territories conquered by them, while attempting from tithes Roman tax. Pope Celesti II provides continued energy protection to the King's Templar as they are the military and of the papacy. That was in 1144 AD. Pope Eugene, it's getting real noisy out there, hold on. Excuse me. Where did I leave off? Let's see, I was around here somewhere. Pope Innocenti II endorses the Templar and promises ownership of all Moorish territories conquered by them while expanding them from the tithes, Roman tax. 1139, March 29th. Pope Celestine II provides continued clergy protection to the Knights Templar as they are the military and the papacy in 1144. Pope Eugene III establishes a foundation of the Knights Templar as well as the collective success in conquering and continued stolen wealth, allowing them safe passage to travel through Europe freely, supported by unum datum optimum and militia tempili. Pope Eugene II orders the Second Crusade against the Moors in 1145 AD. Yaqub ibn Yusuf, also known as Al-Mansur, ruled Morocco from 1149 to 1189, invaded Al-Andalusia twice, and is known as one of the greatest Moorish rulers in Spain. After 1147, Mahdi and the Almohad Moors, Unitarians, began to take control over the Moorish Empire. The Almoravid Moors' control over Spain slowly trickled, and by 1174 it was replaced by the Almohad Moors. Just like with any shift in power, the Almohad Moors began to take major changes and enhancements in Moorish Spain. Pope Gregory VIII orders the Third Crusade in 1187. Pope Innocent III orders the Fourth Crusade in 1199. Moors, Yiddish, were required to pay tithes on land from them by the Christian Crusaders in 1207. Christian victory of Navas de Tolosa, led by the Christian king Alfonso VIII, conjoined with the kings of Aragon and Portugal, is one of the most important turning points in the reconquest of Al-Andalusia by the Europeans. The secret treaty of Verona, King John in England submitted his kingdom to the authority of the Pope. Pope Innocenti III ordered the Fifth Crusade in 1213 AD. Pope Honorius III closed all law schools and forbid the study of law in 1219. Look at what's happening. I'm not going to go to that. Pope Gregory IX orders the Inquisition by the Church in 1233 AD. Pope Gregory issues the Church Bulla Pietati Proximum, which confers the German order of Kalmerland and recognizing any lands conquered by them in Prussia, as well as placing those unwilling to convert to Christianity or Catholicism known as heretics, or one who practices heresy. Heresy means a freethinker, as ownership by them as long as they answer exclusively to the sovereignty of the Pope. 1234 AD. Pope Gregory orders the seizure and examination of the Ibri, Yiddish writings to include the Talmud in 1239 AD. The foundations of the Jewish Ibri law lie in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Ibri Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The law book by Michael H. Roffer. That was a quote. Gregory orders all Yiddish books to be seized in 1240 AD. Pope Innocenti IV orders the Talmud to be burned in 1244 AD. Pope Innocenti refuses synagogues to be built in the city of Cordoba, 1250 AD. Pope Innocent IV authorizes torture during the Inquisition, 1252 AD. Pope Innocenti IV expels Ibri Yiddish Moors from Vienna, France, 1253 AD. Pope Nicholas IV authorized Franciscan Inquisition against the Yiddish Moors of Bosnia in 1291 AD. Moors ignite the Renaissance. It began in Italy in the 1300s. In fact, in Europe today, they still wear cotton wigs. Cotton wigs present the woolly hair of the Moors. Even here in America, the Republican Party used to be named the Whigamore or Whigamore Party, giving honor to our woolly hair, as we are the ones who taught Europeans the science of positive law. Wiggas. Excerpt from that's a comparison of like Moorish hair and the Whigs or the Whigmores wore to try and pretend like they're Moors. Excerpt from The Golden Age of the Moors, edited by Ivan van Sertima. The 700 years during which the Moors dominated the Iberian Peninsula was an era in which many Europeans came into North Africa in states of servitude. The Muslims, the Moors, brought millions of European slaves over to North African ports of sale: Tangier, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, Fez, and Marrakesh, and some northern Egyptian towns. This is what eventually made many North Africans appear different from sub-Saharan Africans. Due to the amalgamation over the years, the skin complexion became lighter, etc. Moorish occupation of the Iberia did not bring just remarkable things in Europe. They founded and constructed many industrious and prosperous towns all over the north of Africa and as far south as Timbuktu. The ruins of their many castles can be seen as much in northern Africa as in Andalusia. The rest of North Africa, from Egypt through the Fezzan and west of the Sahara to what is now called Morocco and Algeria, were populated by Africans, also called Moors. I just want to make sure. I'm gonna go to just trying to figure out the pages here. I said I was gonna go to 38. I did. All right. So the early Christians also used Saracen indiscriminately to cover both Moors as well as other Muslim population in general. Over the many years of our ancestors' rule over Europe, many scholars will reference, we begin to fight amongst ourselves for the ultimate rulership over the area, which inevitably ended in our downfall in 1492. Although we fought amongst each other, you will read in history that our many tribes within the empire unified at a severe crisis and fought against the rebelling pale-skinned Albion Europeans. The rivalry between power groups, page 9, between Moors, Berbers, Arabs, Persians, and Turkey, all of which are the same people, due to Moors into Europe, came the advances of an empire more than those of either Alexandria the Great or Rome at its highest. The popularity of Moorish scholars was just that for centuries. Arabic was commonly accepted as the language of scholars from Europe, Asia, and Africa. Moorish Spain was very unique among Islamic nations. Women enjoyed more societal freedoms than any part of the Islamic world. They moved freely in public and engaged in various gatherings. A curious schizophrenia developed amongst Catholics in relation to Moorish science. On the one hand, they were very much aware of the superior knowledge of the Moors, and they made efforts to acquire the knowledge so that they would not be left behind. At the same time, they strove to desperately keep it away from the common people, and even at times to vilify it so that it would not become a challenge to Catholicism. They were afraid that the Enlightenment, the new ideas that this knowledge would bring, could affect the populace, so that even though they were given the keys to inner sanctum, they kept the cage closed to the masses. Tactics of hiding, suppressing, omitting, and watering down information are still in practice today. In 2017, that's when the book was written. Evidence of this existence in the secret societies, Illuminati, Knights of Columbus, Knights of Malta, Eastern Stars, Daughter of the American Revolution, Freemasonry, KKK, Thule Society, Shriners, York Rite, the Scottish Rite, Royal Ark, the Red Cross of Constantine, Prince Hall, et alia. If you continue to read more history, you will find that the European Inquisition, defined by the French historian Jean-Baptiste Girard, is a system of repressive means, some of temporal and some of other spiritual kind, concurrently issued by ecclesiastical and civil authorities, and has always been a civil and religious agenda perpetuated by Europeans, sometimes politically claimed Christians, to suppress, defeat, and control the Moorish Empire. Our empire extends from Egypt, northeast, southwest Africa, across the Atlantic Ocean onto the present-day North, South, Central America, including Mexico and the Atlantic Islands, the Caribbean. Unum Sanctum, the Holy One, Pope Boniface the Eighth declared that there is no salvation outside the church, that the church must remain unified, and the dogmatic propositions that belong to the church are necessary for extra salvation. And the position of the Pope is the supreme head of all churches, while also asserting authority over the King of England, claiming his power is temporal and the church's power more divine. By this time, the church has been operating as a sovereign power for more than 90 years and had more support and finance from the people, who thought that their salvation was just the clergy, so the king had no choice but to accept the proposition made by the clergy in 1302 AD. The Pope reconstituted the Knights Templar as the Order of Christ, Militia Order of Christ, Portuguese Order of Christ in 1319. Sane Charismus Martin V, after capturing Ceuta in Al-Andalus, Moorish Spain, so-called John I of Portugal for support in his continued efforts to drive the Moors out of Spain. This is more timeline. What's important to realize is that it just so happens that the Moorish fall of Granada, Spain happened in 1492, and then conveniently Columbus sailed to the Americas that same year because the Moorish Empire fell and they had a hold over the empire in Americas. Well, they had also their empire extended to the Americas, so once they fell, they were able to sail here and not, be fighting with the Moors because they fell. I'm just gonna skim some of the books so you can kind of see. It's not just historical timeline. It does go into more information. This is like correspondence between President George Washington and like with the Battle of Tripoli, Thomas Jefferson, people who wrote to the Sultan of Morocco, thanking them for being here. The establishment of the treaties. And then I'm just gonna give you a quick glimpse of the rest of the book so you can kind of see what it entails. Then it goes into like the prophet stuff. Figure out a way to get this page to stay down. Old pictures of the prophet. This is a history about the prophet, who is the man who brought all of this to light. So now we're getting into laws and stuff. It's a lot of literature, but I feel like it's necessary for you all to see. It goes into money. Goes into secret society stuff, classifications of law. The continuation of classifications of law, international law, treaty law, civil law, jurisdiction. So this is everything. This is history, this is law, because again, law and history have to be taught together. So that's why I think this book is so perfect. And for writing his first book, I think it's such gold, and he's such a really good writer. This talks about the slave trade and how, and then some like books, they were white and they were slaves, the untold history of the enslavement of whites in early America. Some references you can get about the slave trade. And slave was originally applied to the Slavics, aka Europeans. I don't even like calling them the Europeans because they are not indigenous to Europe. They're Slavics or Albions. The trick. This is kind of how it happened. How we fell under the trap. More literature. As you can see, it's not a bunch of fluff. It's actual data and information. He put in a speech by Barack Obama there. what he talks about. Call. I had to decline it real quick. There's a lot more good stuff in here that I want to show you. I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna flip through it. It goes into like different words, the different names of the Moors. That's here in America, in Olmec Head. I'm sorry if it says none in stock. It might have sold out while the live was going. We do have PDFs available. I'm not sure when the next shipment is coming in or when we can order the next shipment. The majority of pyramids that exist in the world are on this side of the world, in the Americas. Egypt just has 3, if I believe, but in the Americas there's a lot more pyramids. Getting into some of this language stuff, how vowels are interchangeable. True Americans, the copper tone natives of America, not a complete list. Colombians, Dominicans, Haitians, Jamaicans, Mexicans, Moors, Boricua, Cubans, Peruvians, Brazilians, Nicaraguans, Chileans, Argentinians, Ecuadorians, Trinidadians, Guatemalan. These are all true Americans. Purposeful failure of the schooling system. This book is so good. Like, so good. He was so ahead of his time with this book. I don't even know. This was divine, honestly. Not to discredit him, because he is amazing and, you know, he has all this information in him, but, like, the way this information came out and just the way it's set up, like the timing, the timeline, and the way it's laid out. He's a very specific writer, too. Everything he writes, it's just so specific. Every word is perfectly placed. So there's some definitions. Like I said, new Moors and so-called old Moors. That doesn't mean you're old in age, you know what I mean? Moors who are new to this information and Moors who already have been known this information, this book is good for everybody and anybody, because it's a good recap. It's good to clear up your concepts, because, you know, a lot of us get swindled by a lot of these dirty ass Moors selling packages and nationality, and they don't fully comprehend jurisprudence or anything themselves, but they still spew information as if they know exactly what they're talking about. Free white persons. It does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races. Who is white, though? Moorish. Because white and black are legal statuses. It's not based on your skin tone. Black, to become pale, to bleach, to turn white. Definition of American. A native of the Americas, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Applied doesn't mean they are, just so you know. They might be naturalized Americans, but Europeans came here and created the Naturalization Act fraudulently. You can only be naturalized by nationals of the land, and nobody did that for them. They made it up so they can call themselves Americans and then deport everybody else. And if so-called black people are all from Africa, how come y'all don't get deported back to Africa? How come Europeans don't get deported back to Ireland, Italy, France? Because they claim to be American. That's why. United States Code, subsection 2002. United States means a federal corporation. More jurisprudence and definitions. Indian title, it goes into all that stuff. Trust law is here. Again, this PDF is available on www.riseofthemoors.org. O-R-G. It's called Are You Confused About Law? That's what the front cover looks like. By Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. The Truth About Cannabis. It talks about the straw man and the birth certificate. This is Stare Decisis and Res Judicata. So folks, invest in yourself. There's things that cost a lot cheaper than this book. I really feel like this book is a great personal investment for everyone, your children, your mothers, your fathers, anyone you want this to have this information. Yeah, so there's some attachments like the Christian Black Codes, the Antikythera Divina that has been referenced multiple times, the Willie Lynch letter, all the things that he references. He provides sources, and for everything that he comments, everything that he references, he provides a source or link for. That is it. Let me get to your questions. I hope you enjoyed that reading. I hope my voice didn't drag out and get so boring. All right, let me scroll up and see some of your questions. If any of you want to get in contact with us, we have a legal service number that we use for the legal services, which is not a part of our nonprofit, which is not a part of, the nonprofit that we run. We are a self-proclaimed nonprofit. We are not no 501c3 or 501a, whatever bullshit. But that number is 401-336-6799. You can also try emailing riseofthemoors@gmail.com. You can DM us on Instagram, Rise of the Moors. I'm not going to lie to you. We get a sea of messages, DMs, texts, emails on every single platform. So don't be upset when your stuff is not getting addressed immediately, as there's a lot, and we also have to deal with our own stuff and our own life and blah, blah, blah. I'm just reading some of your comments. Dang, it might have sold out on the website. I'm not sure. I have to double check. Jamal just released his 5th book. It's a booklet. His 4th book is Are You Confused About Law? The 2nd book is called Africa, Moorish Dominions. The 3rd book is called The Deific Man, Moorish Mysticism. That was the 3rd book. The 4th book, he lost his hard drive and lost that whole book, so that is no longer existing. But this 5th booklet he put out is called The Sultanate of America. And it goes into, I can actually show you a little excerpt from that one, if you're all here, still, if you want to see that one a little bit. That's his newest one. That one, again, a booklet, shorter. That one goes into the treaties that were established between Moors and Europeans. And every time one of those treaties were established, a new colony was established here in the Americas. In North America. How do you set up an allodial title? You can Google, go to YouTube and look up allodial title, and then just put in allodial title, Rise of the Moors, and you should see a YouTube video on that. Thank you. I wish I could take credit for this class, but this was just a reading from Jamal's book. But thank you. Dang. That's why I try not to let people borrow my stuff. And I'm telling you, I gave away about 3 or 4 copies of this, my personal book, before I ended up with this one. Because I don't let people borrow stuff because it's never coming back. And you know that. For the most part. When will you have hard copies? We just got a shipment in and they flew, I guess. People have been waiting on them for a while. There's PDFs available. This is expensive to print, so that's part of one of the reasons why we don't have them often, you know. Islam. I don't know what this person's talking about. Privacy. Yes, there's many books you can read. I don't know what those comments are about. It's not related to me. Absolutely meant for the generation. Yeah, I think so too. Yep. Peace and love to all the Moors. Thanks for listening. I hope, you know, this version of an audiobook was decent. Can allodial titles apply to private automobiles? You know, I am not positive, but I do know that you can't have a bill on it. You know, if you bought it in cash outright, you don't even need an allodial title for that. You could just put, like, if you buy a car cash, you could just put that in a trust. Can I borrow that book? All right, so I don't see any more questions. Thanks for listening. This is Are You Confused About Law? I was thinking about starting like a little reading of different books that we have. Not books that are just written by Jamal, but, you know, Golden Age of the Moor, They Were White and They Were Slaves, books like that. Just reading little clips of it, you know, as a little study group thing. And that will just be as I go, because nowadays I can't really commit to anything. If I'm being honest. You're the first time to this knowledge. Moors are not citizens of the United States of America. No, they're not citizens of the United States of America. They're American citizens, not citizens of the United States, though. So, thank you for tuning in. riseofthemoors.org. There's lots of free information. There's also paid info on there. I recommend the trust law classes, 101, 102, and 103. What else? If you go to YouTube, again, there's like 2 or 3 years worth of free videos on YouTube. All of the information that the Grand Sheik knows is in those videos. Like I said in the beginning of this video, YouTube Rise of the Moors. If you've already watched the videos, watch them again, because I promise it'll be a deeper understanding this time. Just like anything you read, you know, when you're new to it, it's not going to be the same as once you know some of the information, so the dots will connect for you a lot easier, and you'll probably be able to see things that you've missed before. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Peace, Moors. Love y'all.